Hello, I'm Jonathan Smith. Today I'd like to talk to you about your vehicle amperage requirements. We want to help you make sure that you have the right size alternator for your vehicle. It's critical to know what your vehicle loads are and what your alternator is capable of producing at idle. You want to make sure that all your vehicle loads are covered at idle. If not, the vehicle is going to take amperage from somewhere. And since the alternator, if it's not able to produce enough power to cover all your loads, it's going to take power from the batteries. That's going to draw your batteries down, cycle your batteries, which is detrimental to the life of your battery. The other thing that's going to happen is when your batteries are low voltage and you try to start the vehicle, you're going to have a low voltage start, so it's going to be a slow crank. That's not good for the starter, it's not good for the batteries, and it's not good for the other electrical components on your vehicle. Items to consider when spec'ing your alternator. Alternators need to be spec'd properly so that all vehicle loads are covered at idle. All power consumption from vehicle accessories is critical to account for, including items like emissions controls, cameras, extra lights, air conditioners, extra heaters, wheelchair lifts, night systems, battery HVAC systems, inverters. Power will draw out of the batteries to the point of failure to cover accessories if the alternator isn't used properly or isn't spec'd properly. If you've added accessories after the vehicle has been produced, you may not have the right size alternator. So you want to make sure that you've covered those, whether, if you have a school bus and all of a sudden they've put in a requirement for 2 more cameras or an extra set of lights, or you have a bus that you want to transfer to a special needs bus and that bus requires extra air conditioners or extra grid heaters. When you're adding those accessories, you also want to make sure that you have the right size alternator to cover those accessories. So even if it's an extra radio, a camera, and a set of lights, you want to make sure you understand what those amperage requirements are and if you have reserve capacity in your system to cover those extra accessories. Even if how small, because an extra set of lights adds 20 more amps, but that puts you into the negative at idle, and a worst case scenario day, now you're drawing 20 amps out of the battery instead of the alternator covering those 20 amps with its reserve. So it's very important to understand what's been put on at the factory. Are those amperages covered? What you've added after, and are you still able to cover those loads at idle? Factors to account for. A 210 amp alternator, or our 210 amp alternator, puts out 140 amps at idle. But there's a certain amount of thermal degradation, so you're going to lose about 15% of that amperage rating at idle as the alternator gets hot. Electrical components, electrical accessories, lose efficiency as they get hotter. You also want to leave 5% of that output rating to go back to the batteries, recharging the batteries. So you have 112 amps of maximum load that you can use at idle out of our 210 amp alternator. That factors in what you lose when it gets hot and amperage to go back to the battery. And just be aware, not all alternators are created equal. Please make sure that you review the power curve for your model to ensure that it has the amperage requirements that you need at idle. Now, we're going to determine the amperage requirements for your vehicle. First, attach an amp clamp to the positive cable going toward the battery. You're going to start the vehicle. Read the amperage without any power accessories turned on. Turn the radio off, lights, heater, everything. That's just going to give you a base amperage. You also want to let the vehicle settle for about 5 minutes. That's going to ensure any of the grid heaters or any kind of heaters that turn on when the vehicle initially comes on, they've turned off. You also want to let the alternator recover the batteries from starting of the vehicle so you don't have extra amperage going to the battery to recover that starting. Next, bump the engine up to 1500 RPM for the test so that you can get an accurate representation of the amp draw of the load. I know that I said you want to cover all the vehicle loads at idle, but you want to make sure that you have plenty of power so you can get an accurate representation of what those loads are. So that's why you want to have the alternator putting out a little bit more than idle so you can ensure that if there's extra, then you know it's there. Do the test at ambient temperature to ensure that you get an accurate power curve. Turn all the vehicle loads to calculate the total worst case scenario vehicle load. If you have extra grid heaters and AC on the bus, check the vehicle both ways to see which one draws more. So you're going to have all the lights on and then turn the extra grid heaters on, then turn the grid heaters off, and then turn the AC on to see which way draws more amperage. Then turn everything back off and do the liftgate. The liftgate should be tested separately, so whether it's a liftgate on a truck, wheelchair lift on a bus, those things can draw up to 150 amps. Now, you're not going to be able to cover those loads necessarily at idle, but you want to build in more reserve capacity into your calculation. So say that you've calculated your vehicle load at 110 amps. You want 20 to 30 amps extra to be able to recover the batteries more quickly from the higher amp draw that the wheelchair lift or the lift gate required. So calculate your maximum vehicle load with the accessory amp draws noted. So you're going to add them all up, see which one came out, and then calculate your worst case scenario, and then based on other accessories, decide whether you need more reserve capacity built into your calculation on your total vehicle load. Understand how you're using the application. That's also very important. Again, go back to the school bus. The school bus does start and stop all day. You know, a liftgate truck where he has 25, 30 stops during the day at various locations. The liftgate goes up and down 3 times at each stop. Due to no idling laws, the vehicle can't run the whole time. So, you know, I look at a day cab. That truck probably only has a 60 amp load, but he has a lift gate that goes up and down 3 times. He's going to want probably 100, 110 amps at idle, so he has an extra 50 amps to recover the batteries quicker between stops. It's very important to ask those kind of questions and understand how you're using your application to see how quickly you can recover your batteries. So we have our base amperage draw plus our total individual accessory draw. Base vehicle, everything turned on. That equals our maximum vehicle load. And again, you may want to make sure that you have extra built in there to recover your batteries for other accessories that don't run all the time. We also have a Press-to-Light technical training bulletin that can help you calculate your vehicle load. They're downloadable on our website. You can calculate each accessory and how much amperage that one requires to calculate your total vehicle load. Do you have any questions? Feel free to reach out to me. Thanks for tuning in today. Please stay tuned for more technical videos from Press-to-Light Leece-Neville.